Welcome to In the Know. I'm your host, Dan Reith, and we continue our series on meeting the candidates for our upcoming provincial election to be held on June 2nd. In this episode, our guest is Brigitte Belton, who is a candidate for Elgin-Middlesex-London for the Ontario Party. Brigitte, welcome to In the Know. It's great to have you.
Great, thanks for having me.
Before we talk about you, I want to talk a little bit about the Ontario Party, just to give our viewers an introduction, because like the New Blue Party, y'all don't get a lot of airtime. And sort of maybe you can share with us where did the Ontario Party come from? What's the essence and purpose of the Ontario Party?
The purpose of the Ontario Party is to bring true conservatives back to the voting public. We started in 2018, so well before Derek Sloan even became involved. He was voted in recently as our leader. And this allows the conservatives to go back to what those values were. So the freedom, the faith, the family, transparency. This is a true conservative party. We've watched what's happened in the last 4 years, and I can't say that's conservative any longer. That's my personal view.
So if you were to compare, give us a little comparison then between the Ontario Party and the Conservative Party of Ontario, how would you declare the differences?
The difference, first off, is we can't be bought. We all agree we can't be bought. We won't be bought by the federal government. That will not happen. We're here for the people, and we are people like every one of them. We're not millionaire business owners. We're not lawyers and doctors. Some of us are, but a lot of us are you, sitting in these seats, speaking for you. And that is definitely how I feel. I never had a notion to become a politician, and people call me a politician already. And I'm like, no, I'm a truck driver that's taking a seat to stand up for you because we have to. The time to let things go and be a typical Canadian, I would say, and sit back and go, oh, well, that's not right. And that's not fair. And and watching politics on TV like we're watching a Toronto Senators game, and screaming at the TV. Those days are gone. We need to get rid of those days. We need to bring the Ontario Party in. We can't do any worse, to be honest. We had the Liberals for 4 years, 8 years, I think they were in. And we had wind turbines and spending money like it was water. Now we have Doug Ford spending money like it's water, promising us billions of dollars. And I was literally going through what he had promised us in 2018, and I still don't have a buck of beer, and I'm upset.
Let's talk about you. Tell us more about Brigitte Belton. Why are you running? What brought you to this point? And why should the voters select you on June 2nd?
The voters should select me first off because I'm them. I know what it's like to live off $65,000, $43,000, and I had a family of 5 at one time on $26,000 a year. I'm not rich. I'm you. I know what it's like to have to pay a hydro bill where the taxes and the surcharges are more than the actual bill. I know what it's like to make the tough choices on what you're purchasing that week and what you're not, especially now since I've been mandated out of work. So I also have that group of people that I can relate to. I know what it's like to be turned down from the EI, or you're not even, don't even apply, you don't qualify. We have to stop that. Segregation and discrimination is not acceptable. Myself, I started the trucker convoy. I was tired of being harassed coming across the border. In one case, I had bought a pair of jeans and I declared them at the border while Ontario was in lockdown. We couldn't buy gloves. We couldn't buy work boots. We couldn't buy work jeans. We couldn't buy all the things that we needed to work. So while we were over across in the US, we would purchase those things. And as a decent person, I claimed them on the way back, only to get threatened with harassment, threatened with jail, take my load, take my truck, put me in jail. Enough. This stuff needs to stop. And now with Bill 100, if you speak out, you can lose your car, you can lose your house, you can lose your bank accounts. And don't think they won't do it. I had my bank account frozen. My husband had his bank accounts frozen. We had no way to pay our mortgage. And my husband is a diabetic. So we had no way to pay for his medication. This is unacceptable. And that's the way Ontario's going. You either follow what Doug Ford wants and says, or you will be sanctioned against. That's not Canada. That's not Ontario. And I can't accept that. I have to speak up. I have to stand up. And that's why I'm doing this.
One thing I found really intriguing as a student of politics was the fact that your party has introduced a recall policy in your platform.
That's
Um,
amazing.
and for our viewers who aren't aware, Canada does not have recall option, whereas in the United States, recall exists at all levels of government, and there are certain criteria that must be met for it to happen. But the point being is that the power of the voter exists to recall or to take out of office those who the majority of the voters don't believe are doing the right job or acting in their best interest. I'm curious as to what you feel about the recall policy as a platform, and why is that important to voters to be aware that that exists?
It's important because if you don't like your politician that's supposed to be speaking for you, not his party, not his boss, but for you. So in my writing, there's over 103,000 voters. I'm supposed to speak for you, represent you. And if I fail to do that, you should absolutely kick me to the curb.
Do you think this is something that will resonate with voters?
I hope so. I really do. We've had so much bad government in recent years that had we been able to say, we don't like you anymore, let's have a little vote and away you go, and they'd be gone, we may have a whole different government in place. It would be interesting to see how the voters take to this. I personally would welcome the opportunity to tell my representative that you're not doing your job. A lot of the times we can't even get these representatives on the phone. Never mind get a letter or an email back. We get the standard, oh, thank you for talking to us. Thank you for sending your letter. And that's it. It's gone. You never hear from them again. It took me almost 2 years to hear from Leanne Rue. And yes, she's federal, but Monty McNaughton's office, I've never heard from him ever. I've heard from Rick Nichols' office. I was in a situation during the pandemic where I couldn't use a bathroom and literally had to pee in a park because I was refused everywhere I went. Nobody was allowing bathrooms at Subway or any other food establishment. And I called her and I said, this is so wrong. I traveled from London from work to Wallaceburg to home, and I can't use a bathroom and have to pee in a park. Do you know how degrading that is? I'm not a dog. I need to be treated with respect. They actually picked up the phone and they talked to me, and Rick Nichols is running for the Ontario Party. So I think that tells you exactly who we are right there.
Some might argue in reading the platform for the Ontario Party that the party is more of a disruptor to the conservative right than it is, or sorry, a disruptor to the traditional conservative party than a serious party that voters should look at. What do you say to that argument?
It's absolutely nonsense. We're a party that's putting you first. We're putting your family first. We're putting faith. You can choose whatever faith it is that you want. You don't have to follow either one of our faiths throughout the party. And we're a party of many different colors, many different races, many different faiths. You don't have to use ours, use your own. If you're not into a higher being, you don't have to follow that either. We are pro-choice party platform. You choose what happens to you. You choose what happens to your children. The Conservative Party is not a conservative party any longer. We can see that. He went with the Liberal government on everything. So we're not a fringe party. We're not a minority party. We're actually a party. We're very solid ideas. We have a very solid structure, and we can offer Ontario the very best and get us back to being the very best.
Let's look at the education component of your platform. And certainly it speaks to education from K through 12. And the first point is through education vouchers, students directly allowing families to choose the education provided that best meets their child's needs. As soon as I hear the phrase education vouchers, that sounds very American. It sounds very much toss the public system out the window and let's look at private schools as a viable option or charter schools. Does the Ontario Party support the abolition of the public system in favor of something private, or is it something where you see it can all work within, can all work, everything has a purpose, but let the family choose?
There are people that are quite happy with the public system the way it is. As a mom of a special needs son, he's 32 now, had I had the option of this voucher, and it's not your full taxation, it's about $4,000 per family or per child. This $4,000 is not going to buy the complete education system in any venue you choose, whether private school or military school. But as a mom of a special needs child, I could have used that to get him a better education when the public school system said to me, let him go through with 16 credits. We'll give him a passport to success, but he doesn't need to do the 33 credits. And I looked at them, I said, well, what is the expectation for my son? And they said, he's going to flip burgers. And I said, oh, no, he's not. We are going to do better. I started teaching him at home. I have, even during teacher strikes in Constance Bay, I set up a makeshift school and we had students come. So we need to remember there is a place for everything. Children learn differently. A lot of these public schools teach in one direction, and it doesn't work for all students. We also have certain things that are entering our school system that a lot of parents disagree with.
I was just going to ask you about that because I was going to go to the when I read further down, there's a piece that's quite wordy, but it really speaks to no removing wokeism and gender identity and from the curriculum and keeping that out of the classroom.
I believe that the critical race theory, which everybody's pushing in the school systems, right from the $10 a day daycare all the way up. There's no need to teach our students of certain sexual behaviors. And it's not that they don't happen, they do, but they will be discovered on their own. We can go into the things they need to know. This is my body. How do I take care of my body? What happened to my body? The same things I was taught in school, but to go on beyond that, that's not for our education system. I go to a Walmart and I have a young woman in there who can't make change for a $20 bill. When you give them 20.02, they're looking at you going, it was $18. Why did you give me, this change? They don't get it. We need to get back to being able to do the basic math, forget all this other stuff. Let's stick to the basic.
When a candidate or a political party comes out with rhetoric like that, immediately you hear your party's racist, your party's transphobic, you're homophobic, etc. So by having a platform around this with education, removing wokeism, removing critical race theory from the classroom, is that to suggest the Ontario Party is racist, homophobic, and transphobic?
Absolutely not. Derek Sloan's married to an interracial woman. I mean, he has 3 beautiful children. His wife is absolutely gorgeous. His family is solid. And they have no even inkling that they are not what most people can be considered white. They are just people. We need to get back to that. Instead of identifying, this is a Black person, this is a white person, this is Chinese, we're all people. Let's get to just, we're people. The division has to stop. We have to just be people. Why do we have to put a color in front of that? Why do we have to put a sexual orientation in front of that? Let's just get back to being people. We are so divided, especially over the last 4 years, 2 years especially. How about we just stop, take a breath, take a step back, and go, I love you. Let's be united. I know that might sound a little fruity to some, but I just want us to get back to where we were and where I grew up. I grew up in a multicultural neighborhood at Don Mills in Eglinton, and I would have never known my best friend was like black, and maybe we shouldn't talk, or maybe we should talk, or I need to treat him differently. I didn't know any of that until adults got involved and put that in my head.
On that note, I have to stop and take a breath because my producer is telling me it's time to go to commercial break. So please stay with us, stay tuned. We're visiting with Brigitte Belton, the candidate for the Ontario Party for the upcoming provincial election. We'll be right back. Welcome back to In the Know. I'm your host, Dan Reith, and we continue our series on visiting the candidates for the upcoming provincial election. In this episode, we're visiting with Brigitte Belton, the candidate for the Ontario Party for Elgin-Middlesex-London. We're talking about education, K-12, and post-secondary education. I was really interested in as well. Tell me what sets your platform apart the others with regards to funding and how post-secondary education would be treated.
Post-secondary education is extremely important. I know one of the major components that was just addressed to me, and I've been talking with the party, is when you apply for OSAP, currently at the bottom, there is a box that says, if you'd like to continue and apply for your OSAP, you must have a digital ID. We're not going to do that. That's going to be gone. You don't have to do that. So that they're already instituting with these children, instead of going to the college or the campus or wherever you go to do your OSAP form, that you're going to, if you want to do it online, which is a complete inconvenience for most students to go into an office, you're going to have to accept digital IDs. We're not going to do that. We're not going to force that on them. And we're not going to start that young. They're trying to get the younger group to go into these digital IDs, and we're not going to do that. The actual platform is available on ontarioparty.ca. So please go take a look at that. I've been concentrating a lot with my community on the younger version, as I don't have a lot of questions on the older post-secondary. So I've been concentrating on making sure people know the platforms in the J to K-12.
Let's talk about healthcare. Healthcare is the biggest budgetary expense the province has. And one of the first things that jumped out at me when I read the platform for the Ontario Party was the Ontario Party as government will permit nonprofit organizations and private corporations to build, own, and manage hospitals. That strikes a chord, I'm sure, with so many who would immediately say, you are destroying what the essence of Canada or Ontario is. Public health care is where it's at. Why is this option of a private healthcare system beneficial? Why does the Ontario Party see that as a solution to healthcare problems in this province?
Do you like waiting 25 months to get help when you're sick?
Absolutely not.
Here's the option, and it's a viable option. Not to mention, we've put how many nurses out of work? How many doctors out of work? They are out of work, and we are planning on bringing immigrants in, fast tracking them through the system to take over those vacancies. I don't want to see that. We have really good, educated professionals here that we could use. They need a job. We need to get Ontario back to work. Let's have this available. We can also not wait 25 months to get service. There's a lady that talked to me yesterday actually. Her granddaughter saw her mother murdered, and she has to wait 3 years for mental health care services. She is sleeping with a baseball bat. This child needs help, and we can't provide it because our waiting list is 3 years long. By having this private system doesn't mean that Ontario won't pay a portion of it. or even all of it, if it became so that we needed to clear up backlogs. We could absolutely do that.
Yeah, and to be fair, the policy does then, the next point does read, provide funding for greater public hospital bed capacity and the hiring of thousands of more healthcare workers. So in fairness to our viewers, it's all there. I want to go to housing, because housing is obviously we've got all the parties are promising more housing, more affordable housing. Liberals are talking about bringing in rent control, which we know doesn't work. How is the Ontario Party going to solve the affordability crisis within Ontario's housing?
We're going to limit foreign investment in our properties here in Ontario. This will bring the cost down. I had a house across the street, $249 it went up for. It sold over to $330. I'm in Wallaceburg. If anybody knows this community, we are a have-nothing community. A lot of our manufacturing plants are gone. There are a few left, but the minimum wage here is what most people get paid. At $320,000 to buy a home that was built in 1969, you can't afford that on $15 an hour. So we're going to help do that by taking foreign investment out of Ontario. It will allow us to deal with us, Canadians. It'll limit people who come in and buy and don't live here. We could even institute things like they do in Georgia. If you purchase a property and you don't live in it, the taxes are a little bit higher. Not insanely higher, but a little bit higher. So if you have a house in Toronto and you have a house in Windsor, you rent the one in Windsor, you don't live in that one in Windsor, we can add a little bit of tax to that. Again, not a huge amount. This will allow people to purchase their own homes for the first time, have a little help from mom and dad, maybe. My kids are in the same boat. They're 32, 36, and they're looking at this as they are never going to buy a home, ever. It's sad. We need to help them, and we need to come as a community to do that. With all the community resources we have, Ontario is a very rich province. I don't understand why we have all this foreign influence. We got this ourselves.
Another common theme in this election is affordability and making life more affordable for people, apart from housing. Something I didn't see or wasn't clearly defined within your party platform is what's the Ontario Party's position vis-a-vis lowering taxation, making gas more affordable, making electricity more affordable, making our groceries more affordable. How will the Ontario Party contribute to that form of affordability?
As a transportation specialist, I know how a lot of our prices jump up. When you have a skid on a dock and you have 20 trucks, the cost of moving that skid goes down. When you take 30,000 trucks out of the mix, and now you have maybe one truck but has to travel maybe half a day to get to your load, that means that pallet on the dock went from shipping for $300 to shipping for about $1,200. Now you've also got the fuel costs, the added fuel costs. I've put forth a 9-page document for the transportation industry, quarterly tax rebates. This will help our farmers, because our farmers' fuel, if they can't afford the fuel to turn their crops and pull them up and turn over the ground, we won't have crops. So I've put this a 9-page document together. It was done through a lot of different American and Canadian agencies, things like taking away governors in Ontario so that we can lessen the interaction between cars and reduce the accidents. OIDA had put this out, how this actually stops accidents in our area. And by being able to drive over an 80 speed limit, I know my car's sweet spot is at 90. So driving at 80 doesn't work. It burns more fuel. So we need to be able to adjust the speed limits to where the vehicles are made to increase the fuel mileage efficiency. There's so much we can do. And again, seeing CEOs on, the sunshine list really burns me when I have to make sure that I can afford to buy my food and keep my lights on. We need to stop that. We need to take those guys out of the sunshine list when you're providing something that is necessary. Hydro is necessary. We must have this.
Bridget, I'm down to our last minute and I want to give you the opportunity. That's okay. You got lots to share. Your passion, I love it.
I am
Want to give you the time to share with the voters why Brigitte Belton is the right choice on June 2nd.
On June 2nd, you're going to want to have a Brigitte Belton speaking for you because I am you. I don't have a silver spoon in my mouth. I never did. I fought my way to where I got to. And I'm the one also suffering, like many of you. I've been put out of work. I have no income at all since the 23rd of May. I know the fight you guys are fighting right now. If you want a voice because you couldn't use your own, I'm it. I'm not stopping. I'm not slowing down. I brought freedom with me to Ottawa, and I'm going to bring freedom with me to Toronto. I've already stood at Queen's Park and did speeches, listens to speeches, talked to people. We are fighting the good fight here. I will stand for you, and I will allow you to take me to task every time you need to.
Thank you, Brigitte, for sharing with us more about yourself and the Ontario Party. And to our viewers, if you want to learn more about Brigitte and the Ontario Party, go to ontarioparty.ca, where you can learn more about the platform in detail and more about the leadership and all the candidates. Thank you, Brigitte, for joining us today.
On TikTok and Facebook, we've got Ontario Party, Elgin-Middlesex-London.
Thank you for joining us on behalf of myself and Rogers. We wish you much success in your campaign and look forward to the outcome on June 2nd. Thank you very much.
So much.
Thank you, viewers, for joining us. Now you are in the know. Take care.